After discussing the needs of performance busting, we now briefly discuss in 2-3 points how this performance busting has originated. The first thing I would like to say that performance busting technique that started in US. Particularly if we say that technique of performance busting was developed in United States of America, and there it was meticulously followed by various agencies. Even though several metropolitan centers and some states in the USA followed the program based approach to busting earlier also, earlier in the sense before the first Hoover Commission report. They followed it, but as a concept of performance busting, it has gained considerable appreciation only after the publication of first Hoover Commission report. And for detail, I am not going in that detail because I have to focus on other aspects, and therefore if you want to read about its development, its origin and growth, particularly in USA, then please refer to the text which is available to you. But I would like to have some background of its origin, of its evolution or its growth in India. Following first Hoover Commission during 1940s, 47 and 47-49, and there was an impact of this performance busting on India also, particularly in the form during 1950s the Estimate Committee of Lok Sabha that undertook a survey of budgetary problems in the country. In its 20th report on budgetary reforms 1957-58 second Lok Sabha, it recommended that India should also adopt performance busting. And as a result of that recommendations, Paul H. Appleby examined the issue of performance busting in his second report titled Re-examination of India's Administrative System with special reference to Administration of Government, Industrial and Commercial Enterprises 1956. I would like to state here that Paul H. Appleby in his first report has not mentioned or recommended or appreciated the performance busting for India because of certain reasons. But again, on the reference of United Nations, as well as it has to be in its second report, he mentioned that it may be accepted by the government of India for certain agencies or certain undertakings particularly. Thereafter, the Ministry of Finance in 1961 accepted the recommendations of the Estimate Committee, and public sector enterprises were instructed to adopt performance busting for them. In other words, I would like to say that the Ministry of Finance, when it was recommending the adoption of performance busting by public sector enterprises, was not interested to adopt it for the ministries, that there was a reluctance on this part. Then this issue was taken up by the first Administrative Reform Commission. Working group on performance busting was constituted. The group considered this issue thoroughly, and expressed that the performance busting is desired in this country. As a result of that, the government of India, which accepted its reports or this recommendation particularly in the year 1968, not 62, and in that year the Finance Ministry prepared a document known as Performance Budgets of Selected Organizations 1968-69. 4 ministries and 16 organizations and services of the Government of India were asked, or we say those were covered under the performance busting system, or they adopted the techniques of performance busting. As a result, performance busting gained importance over the years in India also, and it has become a part of Indian budgetary system. Now, after discussing its growth in a brief, if you want to in detail, then you can refer to the text as I stated for US, for India also. Now, we will take what is performance busting. What do you mean by the performance busting? The term performance busting has been explained by various authorities. First of all, let's take Jess Burkhead in his book Government Busting 1956 that advocated the performance busting. According to him, according to Burkhead, at a broad definitional level, he defined the performance busting as, at a broad definitional level, performance busting can be most appropriately associated with a budget classification that emphasizes the things which government does rather than the things which government buys. Performance busting shifts the emphasis from the means of accomplishment to the accomplishment itself, means results. Similarly, a manual for program and performance busting 1965 of the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, has described the concept in the words, quote, performance busting involves the development of more refined management tools such as unit costs, work measurement and performance standards. Performance busting is an all-inclusive concept embodying program formulation as well as measurement of the performance of work in the accomplishment of program objectives. Performance busting, as it is commonly understood, is a technique of busting in which government operations are presented in functional categories in terms of functions, programs, activities and projects. These terms, although we will define these terms, but before defining these terms, that is, performance busting as it is commonly understood is a technique of busting in which government operations are presented in functional categories in terms of functions, programs, activities and projects. I would like to say that this technique of performance busting is different from the conventional busting system. How? The reason is, in the here we are not concerned about the items which are purchased or hired or procured. Rather, we are concerned on the programs, on the accomplishment of the programs, on the result of the programs which are implemented and listed in the budgetary document. And that's why when we are defining performance busting as a technique of busting in which government operations are presented in a functional categories in terms of function, I am emphasizing it, functions, programs, activities and projects. What are these things? Let's define these terms. A manual for program and performance busting of 1965, as earlier stated, defined these things as, first of all, let's take functions. Functions are broad groupings of operations which are concerned with attaining the larger purposes of the government, whereas programs are broad categories within each function and they distinguish the products which will contribute in the attainment of objectives. That's why we can say the one functions may consist of many programs. The functions are larger groupings and programs are only the broader categories within those groupings. Next term is activities, and activities are more limited divisions of actions and an array of like actions in each programs. Means if we are having a programs, there may be a list of activities or group of activities which is to be performed within a programs. There are different group of activities within a programs. And lastly, the concept of projects. In projects are defined as consist of activities of capital nature in an investment program and executed by production units which are able enough to function independently. And that's why after discussing these concepts, that is functions, programs, activities and projects, now we can have more clarification on the concept of performance busting. Performance busting represents a management approach of budgeting. It involves the classification of transactions in a meaningful way in a financial and physical terms, and in doing so, it establishes an apt relationship between inputs and outputs. Its primary concern is with the objective which the government sought to achieve. It gives specific details of the work to be performed or services to be rendered. The estimated cost of that work or service is presented realistically as far as possible. Means it should not be hypothetical one. Although we cannot bring the reality or realistic, we cannot do it in a realistic manner, but we must try to make it realistic as far as possible. It also enables the assessment of performance in relation to the cost incurred. Means what we are spending on certain activities, whether we are getting the desirable outcome out of that spending or not. This is an important aspect in the performance budgeting, and that's why by this time with this discussion, I hope that you have enough understanding how performance busting technique is different from the conventional busting or line busting techniques. Now, after discussing that aspect, we come to another aspect of the performance busting, that the steps in performance busting. The performance busting techniques involves three main steps. First, in each assigned functions, all relevant programs and activities are developed. Again, I am emphasizing this aspect. This is the first, that whenever we are preparing a budget, we have certain functions keeping in view the objective of that particular administrative or executive organization. We listed certain functions, and for each and every kind of function, we list the programs, and within for each and every programs, we list the different kind of the activities in a detailed manner. That has to be developed before we undertake the performance busting. That's essential, because if we are concerned about the output, if we are concerned about the end result, if we want to measure the end result, in that circumstances, at least we must have a complete and detailed understanding of functions, programs and activities. The second step involves that we have to evolve an appropriate system of accounting and financial management. Not only we have to evolve it, rather we have to adopt it. How the accounting has to be done, how the things have to be, that has to be recorded, and what kind of the financial that suits to our performance budgeting, that has to be evolved as well as to be established one. The third is and for doing that, there is an important aspect. This is the third step. In third step, with all pertinent that we have to evolve and establish the pertinent norms, standards, performance work units, unit costs. These have to be determined for each program, for each activity, so as to facilitate the reporting and evaluation. Again, I am repeating this aspect, that first we have to list function, programs and activities in a detailed manner. Second, we have to adopt an accountability and financial management system in accordance with our requirement. And third, we have to establish and adopt norms for accounting and financial management or for measurement, standards for measurement, performance work units, again just for applying these standards and for measurements, unit cost has to be determined, and in this way it is for each and every program and each and every activity, so that we may have a proper system of reporting as well as evaluation, and that should be a continuous process. So after discussing these steps, now we have why we adopt, what are the objective of the performance busting. According to the working group on performance busting of the first Administrative Reform Commission in India, which had submitted its report in 1967 for the purpose of according to them, number 1, to correlate the physical and financial aspect of every program or activity. Second objective is to improve budget formulation, review and decision making at all level of management in the government machinery. Number 3, to facilitate better appreciation and review by the legislature. Number 4, to make possible more effective performance audit. Number 5, to measure progress towards long-term objective as envisaged in the plan. And number 6, to bring budget and developed plans closely together through a common language. And by that means, if we have this kind of objectives, it means we may be able to measure the performance of the government, and we may have better financial control, of preparing the budget, so that there may be lesser wastage, there may be elimination of the wastage of financial resources from the busting system, which may not be possible in conventional busting system. Then after discussing the objectives, there is another aspect, that what we should do before introducing the performance busting, or in other words we can say the prerequisites for introduction of performance busting of a department or of an agency or of a ministry or an enterprises. The first of all, what we should do, the objective of the organization should be clear, leaving no room for ambiguity. Means what we want to do, that should be clear by each and every organization which wish to adopt performance busting. Ambiguity may not help us. Ambiguity, if there is an ambiguity or there is a confusion, then it is the conventional busting which may be more useful. And because if we can't measure the performance as per certain standards laid down for the purpose, then in that circumstances we may not be able to get the benefit of performance busting in a right manner. Therefore, the activities that the second prerequisite is, the activities of the organization should be capable of being quantitatively measurement, means quantification of the qualitative aspects. Quantification of the qualitative performance has to be there before introduction of the performance busting, because objectivity in ensuring the performance, that is possible if we can measure the performance, if we can measure that the achievement of the programs or activities in a quantitative manner. Number 3, the third essential prerequisite is that the output should have homogeneity to the extent possible. Means whatever the results, that should be made in homogeneous manner. But although it is not possible, but we must try to make to measure the outputs in a homogeneous manner as to the extent it is possible. Then number 4, the fourth prerequisite, we can say the program should not be much susceptible to severe ups and downs. Means take for example, if we take that there may be fluctuation in the performance for implementation of a particular programs then in such a circumstances performance busting is not we may not be able to adopt performance busting for that purpose, when it depends upon subjective consideration where the programs performance of the programs is so susceptible to the certain things, then it may not be possible. Then high achievement, another prerequisite is that there must be high achievement motivation level and it should be present in the organization. In other words, in very simple words, that the people working in the organizations, they may have a higher motivational level, so that they can perform the functions, they can implement the programs and motivated to perform the activities under those functions and programs in an effective level. Only then we can adhere to the norms and standards which are laid down for the purpose for the measurement of the performance. That's essential prerequisite one. After that, we come to the advantage of performance busting. I would like to list all those advantages one by one. First of all, the performance busting makes clear the goals and objectives of the programs. First of all, the goals and objectives are clear to each and everyone working in the organization, and that helps in better achievement of those goals and objectives. Second, the performance busting fixes performance standard against which performance can be measured and evaluated, and that helps in improving the efficiency of the organization. Number 3, the performance busting involves cost benefit analysis for comparative evaluation of programs, activities and projects. And when the organization or the people working in the organization, they know that that we are misusing the funds, naturally a control mechanism is there to control it or to check it, and that's why this is an essential, and this is considered. When we know that we are spending more than we have to spend on this particular activities, then we can control that. We can find out where we are misusing it, where we are wasting it, and how to check wastage and misuse of that financial resources that can be done. Number 4, performance busting helps the administration to communicate their activities in a more effective manner to the legislature, executive, judiciary and public. Again, these are the 4 stakeholders in a budgetary system, that is legislature who frames the budget and approves the budget, executive who implement the budget or the programs, projects or activities, judiciary as well as the public. Those are considered the watchdog of public spendings, and as a result of that, when everyone is well informed in a very objective manner, then they can ask the question if there is there is a deviations from the standard norms or standards laid down for that specific purpose. 5th advantage is that performance busting facilitates management control and makes legislative review more insightful. Means when you are measuring each and every activities and comparing with certain standard, in that circumstances you can keep control, effective control or effective management control on the executive agencies spending the budgets. Number 6, this kind of busting makes it easier for the administrators to obtain support of the public for their activities by increasing their understanding level. Means the administrators who are likely to implement the programs or perform certain activities, they can ask that we need money for this purpose, and since they are performing as per the standards, and that's why there may be public support for those programs, those activities which are being efficiently and effectively performed by the administrators. That's why that helps in better performance of the organization. Number 7, performance busting fixes the responsibility more precisely and increase the result based accountability of administration for performance of the program. And number 8, it increases transparency in administration by providing information about major government activities and their achievements. If it is so, then it means that it is a corruption free administration, and that's why the performance busting is helping the administration to keep itself clean and to be result oriented. Then last part is the critical evaluation of the performance busting. I again listed some of the important issues for the critical evaluation of performance busting. We will discuss one by one. First of all, the performance busting is a rational technique of busting, which may be highly beneficial for organization if applied thoughtfully. Again, if there is no detailed and objective expressions of function, programs and activities, then naturally it may not be beneficial. And that's why it is essential that we apply performance busting thoughtfully, and that's why this is, and then it is very beneficial. Second, the application of this technique faces difficulties in real life as practical conditions involve too many unpredictable vagaries. In other words, we can say there is a difference between theoretical planning and practical implementation of that program. The ground realities are totally different and the practical conditions are totally different, and that's why measurement of certain things or certain activities or certain we say the programs in as per certain standards, that's a very difficult one, because the in public life the phenomena or program is influenced by a complexity of factors, a combinations of by various kinds of the contradictory factors. Third issue, we can say an element of uncertainty is always there, which can prove to be crippling factor and hamper results. The question is, while measuring performance, while performing or implementing a program or performing an activity, there is always uncertainty because emotions, because of subjective consideration of the people for whom the program is implemented and for by whom the program is being implemented or activity is performed, there is always a certainty, and that's why if there is such kind of uncertainty, in that situation performance busting may not be beneficial, since we cannot measure the results in an objective manner. The fourth issue is relating to the cost benefit analysis, and it has not always been accurate. Not only we say, moreover, there are many costs which cannot be, many intangible and indefinite costs are there, and if those are intangible and indefinite costs, in such a situation we may not be able to measure the performance, or we may not able to adopt the performance busting system. The fifth issues in the critical evaluation of performance busting is that all outcomes or end products cannot be identified and quantified. There may be certain things which can be perceived, which cannot be measured by any quantified manner, and that's why we cannot apply performance busting technique there. The sixth issue is work or performance units. Relating to the work or performance unit, and suitable norms and yardsticks are not always easy to develop to measure the work or to by certain performance unit. In India, as for example, it is possible to send a teacher to a class, but it is not possible that how qualitatively he will be able to teach the students. For that, we may not be, it is difficult to evolve certain standard or to evolve suitable norms for that purpose, or to evolve the yardstick for measurement. And seventh issue, we can say in India, performance budget documents have not been able to attain the stated purposes, particularly in India. And most of the documents which are available, those are descriptive type, and the targets in financial and physical terms were given in them, but an analysis of performance is missing in all those documents. And these are the issues which are important, or which may be taken into consideration while analyzing the performance busting. Now let's sum up the whole issue, that is, the performance busting technique has developed due to the shortcomings or the limitations of the conventional busting approach. No doubt it is seen as a progressive and rational approach to busting, which helps to improve the performance of the governmental agencies and to make the budgetary system an effective tool to ensure accountability of administration. But no doubt there are the intentions and the rigorous ways of preparing and executing this budget are noble one, but the practical considerations come in the way of proper application of this kind of busting. As a result of that, performance busting have limited application while preparing the budget. But it does not mean that this approach does not have any significance, as in the conventional budgeting system we have adopted the characteristics, we have adopted as possible as we can adopted the characteristic of performance busting while preparing it. That's all for this deliberation on this topic. You can search for further information, or you can go to the text for proper understanding and better understanding and detailed information on the topic. Thank you very much.